Before we jump into this episode, I want to give a massive shout out to our amazing sponsor this season, Jo Higgs from Jo Higgs Creative. Jo is a freelance logo and brand designer with over a decade of experience, and she is all about helping female-led businesses stand out and attract their dream clients. Right now, Jo is offering a fantastic free downloadable guide called Building Your Brand. It dives into the basics of branding and how to really boost your brand awareness as a small business owner. Plus, there's a super helpful checklist you can go through at your own pace. You can grab it at www.joannhiggs.co.uk/free download, and I'll make sure to pop the link for that and all the ways to find out more about her in the show notes too. In the meantime though, let's get back to the episode you're here for. As a personal brand or small business owner, showing up online is kind of the job, but it can feel complicated when you're also trying to protect your privacy, your family, and your peace of mind. Maybe you've wondered, am I oversharing? Am I being safe enough? What will people think of me? Today, I am talking all about how I share my life online in a way that still feels safe, intentional, and totally aligned with my values. I'll walk you through the real practical things I do to protect myself and my family, plus the mindset shifts that have helped me stop second-guessing myself every time I post something personal. Whether you're brand new to showing up online or you've been doing this for years, I hope this conversation leaves you feeling reassured, more confident, and fully in charge of how you choose to show up. But before we dive in, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to Show Up and Be Heard, the podcast for women who want to grow a business on their terms without the overwhelm. I'm your host, Becky McAvoy, multi-award-winning social media marketer, international speaker, and the dreamer behind Be Heard Socials and the Boss Your Socials Club. This podcast is all about cutting through the noise that comes with running a business while juggling multiple priorities and spinning all of the plates. So if you're after practical, no BS advice to make social media, business and life feel simpler and more doable, or you just want a supportive space where women in business feel seen, heard and inspired, then you are in the right place. Right then, let's get started with this week's episode. Let's be honest, the whole just show up online thing sounds super simple until you actually try to do it yourself. We all watch people all the time on social media, showing up on their stories, putting posts out, doing things, and they make it look dead easy. But when you actually come to do it yourself, like it just feels a bit awkward or a bit cringy, or you freeze, because when it's your face, your story, your family, your life, your business, it all suddenly feels a lot more personal. And because it's so public, people feel the right to comment on it and give you their opinions too. Sometimes these are well-intentioned, sometimes they're not. But even when they're well-intentioned, it can make you second guess yourself, can't it? And I just wonder whether you have ever found yourself hesitating before you hit post or before you publish a story, wondering, is this too much? Have I said too much? Am I oversharing? Will people judge me? Am I keeping myself and my family safe? Should I say this? You know, all of the different things that we doubt ourselves on. If that sounds familiar, I just want you to know you are so not alone. I have had all those thoughts too, and I still do, to be honest, sometimes. But as someone who shares a lot online to connect, help and grow my business, but as someone who also wants to protect my privacy, my kids and my peace and my energy, this is something I have thought about a lot. So for the years that I've had my business, I found ways to show up in a way that feels intentional, that feels safe, and that still feels true to me. And that's what I want to share with you in today's episode. I want to talk about the boundaries I use, the practical filters I've put in place, and the mindset shifts that help me feel more confident and clear about how I show up online, especially when I'm sharing personal stuff. So through this episode, I am going to share the practical tips, like I said, and I think that's where I'm going to start, because that's what you're here for, isn't it? The practical tips you can go away and implement yourself. And then I will end on a mindset reframe that I think you might find useful. So first up, here are some practical tips and boundaries and filters I use and that you can tweak to suit you, because obviously these are things I use. They might not work specifically for you, but they can help you think about how you might want to put them in place for yourself. And hopefully they will help you show up safely and intentionally. So my very first tip, and it sounds outrageously obvious, but it is really important. Actually take some time to decide what's off limits and stick to it. So you get to draw the line. You don't have to explain it. That might mean, for example, that you never show your kids' faces, or you don't talk about your partner, or you never post from your home, or it might mean that you do all of those things. Whatever it is, decide what feels good for you and honour that. For example, I often talk about being a mum, but I am really intentional about what I show and say. And whilst it might look like I share a lot, I absolutely do not share everything. I share what I have decided I am comfortable with sharing and what my kids are happy with me sharing. I also check in with myself a lot and ask, does this feel good to share or too vulnerable? Because if something feels slightly off, then I don't share it. And sometimes I end up sharing it at a later point and sometimes I don't. But the pause is really important in helping me to decide which I do and what I decide to share. And I think what's important in saying, like, when you're deciding this, it's not about looking at what other people do and think you should do the same. And it's not, no one's right or wrong in what they share. And it's about deciding what is right for you. So take some time and intentionally sit down and give yourself some headspace and to write down what's off limits for you and what you're happy to talk about, and then stick to that. Okay, the second tip that I've got is to have a content filter. So you can decide all of that, but sometimes, there's some blurred lines between it, isn't it? You've decided that you are going to share something, but there might be something in there that you're not sure about. So having a content filter is a game changer. It's basically a set of questions you ask yourself before you post. And I'm going to share with you 3 that I use all the time. Now, I don't use these every single time I post because I've got quite used to showing up and posting and doing all that stuff. So the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with this. But if you're ever feeling just a little bit funny about it, then these are the kind of questions you could ask yourself. Why does this matter and who cares? Because if you can answer why it matters and who cares, and it's an important thing to share. And sometimes when I ask myself this question, like sometimes I'll go, oh, well, I'm posting it because I haven't posted anything else for a while. And that's not a good reason to post. But by saying, why does this matter and who cares? If you can answer that question, and you're comfortable with the answers, it can be a good thing to share. And you can use this for personal things or political things or anything really to decide whether it's something that you should post or shouldn't post. The second question is, would I be okay if this was shared in a room full of strangers? Because ultimately that is actually what you're doing. You are sharing it, if you've got a public account, to the whole world. Like anybody can watch that, not just the people that follow you. Literally anyone, if they come across your account, can see it. So would you be okay if that was shared in a room full of strangers? The third question is, would I post this if my kids, my partner, my clients, delete and insert as appropriate, were watching over my shoulder? For me, if the answer to any of those questions is no, that's my signal to pause. Not because I'm hiding anything, but because I'm protecting my energy and my boundaries, and I'm protecting my privacy in terms of what I want to share, because you don't owe the world anything. And yes, posting certain content helps make you more relatable and helps grow your business and all that kind of thing, but not at the expense of you feeling uncomfortable about it or not feeling sure about it or feeling really exposed or vulnerable. Which kind of leads me on to my next tip, actually. So tip 3 is be personal, not private. This is such an important one because of what I've just said around that stuff about, everything people tell you about the things that people like to see and people relate to and gets good engagement and all kinds of stuff. But there is a big difference between being personal and being private. You can still build trust, be relatable and connect with your audience by sharing personal stories or experiences without giving away your most private moments if you don't want to. So here's a bit of an example to sort of help with that. Saying something like, I've been through burnout is personal. Sharing every single raw detail of that burnout in real time whilst you're still in it, that could be something that you want to keep more private. So just give yourself space to process things before you post, or don't post about them at all. You're allowed to keep things just for you. And I often like to share things. Predominantly, I will share things after I've been through it. If I'm going to share it, even if it's private, but I'm going to share it publicly and I'm happy to, I share it once I've been through it and I've actually got the answers, because actually I don't want to share something in the moment and then change how I feel about that thing, like a week later, and then wish I hadn't posted that other thing. So often I wait to have gone through the experience of something before I post about it. Now, that doesn't happen every time. I recently shared about my PMDD diagnosis because I wanted to put it out there. I made the decision that I wanted it out there. And I felt quite uncomfortable about that because I normally share things once I've got stuff sussed out. And I really haven't got stuff sussed out around that. I'm still going through it, but I kind of wanted it out there because it helped me explain the way that I was showing up in that moment. However, what I still didn't do was go into every single detail about that diagnosis and about how I was feeling and about what I'm going through. I just shared that I had the diagnosis and it was something that I was learning how to live around and how to deal with. So just remember, sharing stuff doesn't mean that you have to share every single detail, and you can be personal and still be private at the same time. Okay, tip 4, protect your location in real time. Now, this is a really simple one and probably an obvious one when you think about it, but it's really easy to forget. So don't post your location while you're still there, whether it's a cafe, a kids club, a holiday, or a walk around your park. Wait until you have left. The small delay gives you a lot more control over your privacy, especially if you're sharing stuff around your family. And if you're posting from home, try and avoid showing things like your front door, street name, school logos, anything that might give away your whereabouts and where you are and where you will be, because you want to keep yourself safe. And ultimately, the internet can be a dangerous place. Like in the large part, I think I use it for a lot of good, but you do need to keep yourself safe. So just these really little things, and simply not sharing your location whilst you're actually somewhere is a huge way to be able to do that. So I really like that. That's something I do a lot. And like I said, especially with your kids, it just protects them and keeps them safe in that way. So protect your location in real time. Okay, tip 5, set very clear boundaries, a bit like the first one. Take proper time to actually do this around what you'll share about your personal life. And I'm going to give the example of your children because I am a mum of 2 small children, and I have a stepchild as well who's much older, but I still have very clear boundaries around what I will share around them. And again, that will be different for everybody. So like I said, I'm going to use the example of if you're a parent. So if you're a parent and you choose to share bits of your family life, you are allowed to do that. There is a lot of noise online that shames people for sharing their kids and their family life and tells people to keep things private. But remember, there's good reason behind that, and you might choose to do that, but you are allowed to share stuff too. There's no right or wrong to it. It's about getting to decide what feels right for you. So here are some of the boundaries that I use. I won't post pictures when they're upset, in distress, or in vulnerable situations. And again, that might sound obvious, but I do see people doing this. I won't do that. I try not to share anything I wouldn't want them seeing in 10 years' time. I often refer to them in general terms like my two or the boy and the girl, rather than using their names. And actually, with the age that they are now, I ask them if they're happy for me to share it. Now, this comes with a bit of a caveat because sometimes they will say yes, but less so with my eldest now. But sometimes they'll say yes, but then I check back in with that. Would they still want me sharing that in 10 years' time? Because they might say yes in the moment, but they are young kids that don't necessarily understand. So those are just some of the boundaries that I use around sharing stuff around my kids. You might decide to use things like emojis over their faces, show the backs of their heads, or just keep them off your grid entirely. Like I said, there is no right or wrong, and you are the parent, you get to decide, but just take some time to think about it. Do what works for you, not what's trending or expected of you, and not what you feel like you should do. Just do what works for you. This can also change over time. So as my kids have got older, I share much less, and I might stop sharing anything completely because of the age that they're getting to, and partly because their answer to whether they're happy for me to share it is increasingly becoming no, which is fine because they are their own people. But also, in my own mind, I don't want to share stuff. I'm also very public about normalizing the highs and the lows and the struggles of being a mum, a woman, a business owner, all of that kind of stuff. But I often don't share the full story. And it's not because I'm not happy to share it. It's because it's not necessarily my story. Like if my kids have got something going on at school, or something is going on with my husband, or they're not well in a certain way, it's not my story to share that. And a good example of this actually is I share a lot around the mental health struggles that we've been through in the past. And my husband is a big part of that because he has depression, and we have been on a real journey with that. And a bit like I said, they're the boundaries that I still use with my kids. I've used a lot of those with him as well. He don't share anything without his full consent and full permission. And there are parts of that story that I have never shared publicly because I don't want to, because it's very private to me. And that doesn't make me any less authentic. It's just that I don't want the whole world knowing about it. I talk to people about it in DMs and people that I'm close with, but I don't want the whole world knowing about it. So just because I'm sharing part of that doesn't mean I owe the world the whole story. Yeah, just have a think about that. There's some examples of my boundaries. I go back to those questions I asked myself with the content filter. And like I said, it can change over time. but set yourself some really clear boundaries about what you're happy to share and what you're not happy to share. My tip number 6 is use privacy settings to your full advantage. So social media platforms do give you loads of tools, especially Instagram actually gives you a ton of tools and features. We just forget to use them to help you protect your privacy and your energy and your peace. So you can do things like have a close friends list set up on stories if you want to share something more personal. So I do that partly not to spam my main stories, but also because there's certain stuff that I don't want certain people seeing that I don't know, or I don't want the whole world seeing if people don't follow me. So I use close friends quite a lot for different stories. You can also turn off story replies if you're not set up for feedback. You can use the mute or restrict button if someone's watching your stories and you don't want them to, but you're not quite ready to block them. So there is mute and restrict where you can stop them being able to see your stories or just your posts. You can choose around that. Basically, the point is there is a ton of features. We'd be here all day if I went through them all. But the point is that it's your space and you get to curate it. So you find out what those privacy settings are and use them to your advantage and find the ones that you want to use and see how they can help you. Okay, tip 7, and my final tip, is trust your gut. This might be the most important one of all. If something feels a bit off, even if it's something that you have posted about before quite happily, whether it is a post, a comment, or a person watching your content, just trust that nudge and trust that gut feeling. You don't need permission or a reason to not post. And you don't need a dramatic explanation to block someone who makes you feel uncomfortable. Your peace matters more than your engagement. And that is so important. Honestly, I think that is the most important one at all. And like I said, just because you have shared something in the past doesn't mean you have to share it again. And just because you haven't been comfortable just because you might have been comfortable sharing something in the past and you're not now, doesn't mean you have to share it in future. Like I was just saying, like the kids are just a really easy example of that, but it can happen with loads of stuff. So yeah, trust your gut. Honestly, I think that is the most important one of all. Okay, so those were my practical tips, but I want to give you a little bit about a mindset reframe because I'm all about the mindset for what other people think about what you share. Because I think this can be the thing that often gets to us the most. We could have put all these tips into place. We're happy with what we're sharing. And then someone says something or makes an offhand comment that they don't think about again. And it knocks us for six. It knocks us completely. This still happens to me now. So I just want to share this mindset reframe with you. When people say things like you share too much or aren't you worried about your safety, as if you're being like a terrible parent or a terrible person, or they maybe laugh about something you've shared, like it can stop you in your tracks, can't it? And even if I said like they're well-intentioned, they're concerned about you, or they're laughing just as a bit of a jokey way, because that's the kind of relationship that you've got. I know this has happened to me in the past, and it can stop you in your tracks, even when it comes from a well-meaning place, which 9 times out of 10 it is. But it can just feel a bit jarring, I guess. And if you've already felt a bit wobbly about what to post, you've already psyched yourself up and set those boundaries and done all of that stuff, it can trigger a whole spiral of self-doubt and knock your confidence. And like I said, I have been there. It still happens. It will happen to me again. And it is so normal. But here's the thing, people will always have opinions, but that doesn't mean they are right. Some people genuinely don't understand how we use social media to build our businesses, and they never will, because if they don't have a business, they're not going to understand that. They're not going to have to do that. They see you share something personal and they think you must be sharing everything, but they don't see the boundaries you've already put in place. They don't realize that you are in control. Like I said, people probably think I have shared the whole story about my husband's mental health and the journey that we've been on around that, or about other things that I've shared, but I absolutely haven't. So I just want to share, next time someone says something like that, someone says something like you share too much or aren't you worried about your safety, some things that you can kindly, gently respond with. So things like, oh, really? Do you think so? I'm actually really intentional with what I share. It might feel like a lot, but it's always within the boundaries that I've chosen. And that just kind of shuts it down. Or you could say things like, that's a fair point, actually. But you know what? I've actually thought about this a lot and I've got strong safety steps in place behind the scenes. So you're really like affirming your, like I know what I'm doing here and I've given this thought. I'm not just doing this off the cuff. So yeah, they're just a couple of things that you can reply. You don't have to word it like that, but just reply confidently that actually, I've got this. And remember that you don't have to explain yourself. You're allowed to just say, oh, thanks for your concern, but actually I've got it covered, and then move on. and, move past it, because it is your business, it's your socials, it's your family, it's your life. You get to decide. And if you put in the tips from this episode, if you haven't done that already, then you can say, actually, I've thought about this and I've got this, but thanks. So I hope this episode has reminded you that you can show up, share your story, build a brilliant personal brand, and still keep yourself and your loved ones safe. You get to decide what you share. You get to make the rules, and you are absolutely allowed to hold boundaries and be visible at the same time. So if this episode helped or reassured you today, I would love to hear. I would love for you to share it with a friend or pop it on your stories. And if you're up for it, tag me in it as well, so I can say thank you, because when people do that, it genuinely means the world. But yeah, I hope you've taken a lot from it, and just thank you for listening and taking it on board. And thank you in advance for anybody that you share it with, or if you share it publicly to your stories. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am really grateful you chose to spend your time here. Before you go, if you love this podcast and you're a woman running a small business who wants to make social media easier and business life less lonely, I've got something for you. The Boss Your Socials Club is here to bring you inspiration, accountability, confidence, and community. It's a place where we ban the word should, because we believe in bespoke advice that will work for you, your stage of life, and your business. As a member, you'll get a monthly content plan, ready-to-use templates, accountability and action sessions, a private members podcast, expert support, and a brilliant community of women who get it. It's like having a mini social media expert in your pocket alongside a whole team of cheerleaders who want to see you win, so that you can show up with confidence without the overwhelm. Membership starts at just £24 a month, and there's a pro tier too if you want even more support. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you next time.